This is a very big week. You have a lot of international politics on the table, diplomacy. The president is going to welcome the French president, Emmanuel Macron, to Washington. It's his first big state dinner. That matters, how it's carried off, how it's planned, what's discussed. And that's one of the reasons we're giving so much attention to what happened this weekend. Right on the eve of all of these big things, we had the president just going off on Jim Comey, the Mueller probe, how all the media has it wrong, how all of it is unfair. He went after it more than he ever has before in terms of volume. So let's discuss the state of play with Mark Short, White House Director of Legislative Affairs and Assistant to the President of the United States. Always good to have you on the show, sir.
Good morning, Chris. Thanks for having me back.
Good. So let's have just one quick agreement on one point. You cannot guarantee to the American people that the Mueller probe will be seen to its conclusion. Is that true?
Chris, how about we phrase the question a different way? How about we look at it as every day there's a different vigil, a prayer vigil, it seems on CNN. Is today the day that Mueller's going to get fired? We've been doing this for months. The president has no intention of firing Robert Mueller. The reality is that we're frustrated that we feel like we've complied in every single possible way with this investigation, and it continues to drag on. But there are no plans to fire Mueller. And it's impossible to say what the future is going to hold because you never know how far off it's going to veer as far as investigation. But there are no plans to dismiss Robert Mueller.
Okay, I hear you on that. One, you know that the reason that we have to put meat on the bones of the speculation is because of the reporting that comes out of the large building behind you right now. That's where it's coming from. It's not coming from our own heads. But again, Mark, I do believe that there's a meaningful distinction between saying we'll have to see and no, whatever happens, happens. The president has full confidence in his cooperation and in his lack of any culpability, so he will not mess with the process. You are leaving open the possibility of messing with the process.
Chris, once again, there are no plans to dismiss Robert Mueller, period.
I know, but that is different than saying, and we never would, because that's not what this is about. You understand the
Chris,
distinction?
There's no way I can sit here and predict what the future is going to hold. There are no plans to dismiss
I believe
Robert Mueller.
you. I believe you. I'm just saying,
okay.
In another administration, you might well be sitting there and saying, look, the guy's going to do what he's going to do, and we'll deal with it then.
Let's talk about other administrations. Other administrations have expressed similar frustrations with special counsels. It's why, in fact, there were multiple appeals to appoint a special counsel during the Obama years, during a lot of different scandals that they chose not to do, because we've seen time and again special counsels have no boundaries and they go way beyond the scope of initial investigation. It happened in the 1980s when a lot of people, innocent people, were prosecuted during the Iran-Contra hearings.
Happened with Bill Clinton.
It happened in Bill Clinton, exactly, and that's when I think
I don't remember him saying this guy's got to go. Janet Reno appointed the special counsel.
Chris, you're 100% right on that. That is an area where Republicans who had once stood against special counsel for civil libertarian reasons decided during the 1990s for politicization they liked a special counsel. And they decided that a special counsel initiated for Whitewater became an investigation about an intern having sexual relationships with the president in the Oval Office. And Republicans then decided they like special counsels. But you're 100% right. Republicans nor Democrats have been consistent on this. Both sides have decided when it's in their political favor they like a special counsel. It's nice if there was some consistency in recognizing that the special counsel in its scope often goes way beyond the boundaries, which is why civil libertarians have often argued that it is not appropriate. That's what the role of Congress is to investigate, and the Department of Justice is. And there's plenty of room within the Department of Justice to do its own investigation.
Right. And maybe it would have stayed there if the president hadn't fired the head of the FBI.
No, maybe it wouldn't have stayed there if the head of the FBI, who said he was not a leaker, then testifies that he intentionally leaked documents, some of them perhaps classified, for the purpose of sparking a special counsel investigation.
That's what he says his intentions
were. That's exactly what he said.
Jim Comey says he tried to push for a special counsel, but we know why Rosenstein appointed one. And it wasn't because of the memos. It was because the President of the United States made a move on the head of the FBI, which spooked Rosenstein into thinking that now we have the Attorney General had to recuse himself. The president's moving against this. It doesn't look good. We need a special counsel,
Chris,
and Rosenstein is your guy.
You know as well as I do that Democrats are arguing that Comey should have been fired during the Obama years. And so then they decided to like him. The reality is there are plenty of, the president fired Comey for, I think, just cause. There are plenty of opportunities to investigate this.
He said it himself to NBC News.
Without appointing a special counsel.
Russia on his mind. This Russia thing is a hoax. Comey's got to go. That's what he said in not so many words.
So Russia thing a hoax. I mean, look, in the last administration, what we did is we allowed Russia to invade Crimea. In this administration, what we've decided to do is to make sure Ukraine is armed. We've expelled 60 diplomats. Our European allies expelled a handful of diplomats. We've put sanctions on the country. We've decided to engage Russia in places like Syria and Iran. So this administration has stood up against Russia.
It is an unusual mismatch of walk and talk. Usually what happens is the White House talks tough about Russia but doesn't really do anything. Here, you're presenting a case that's actually the inverse of that. You did give arms to Ukraine. The Obama administration would not do that. Now, I would argue you haven't done anything on the suggestion of Crimea, but one step at a time. But the talk, this president is more gentle about Vladimir Putin than he is to anyone else that I can think of that he should respect and see as inimical to the American cause. So there's a mismatch.
We'll accept his rhetorical victory that Chris Cuomo on CNN is saying this administration is walking the walk on Russia.
Well, you have taken steps that weren't taken before. But the question becomes that you got to give credit to the administration. The president's the head of it. But why doesn't he say the types of things he does for other allies, let alone inimical operators? He doesn't say them about Putin. The man aimed missiles in a video at Trump's house, and he didn't say anything about it.
What the president said on the campaign is it would be great to partner with Russia to defeat ISIS, one of the greatest threats this country faces. It would be great to partner with Russia against North Korea. Those are things the president believes. But as you just said, this administration is walking the walk and actually holding Russia accountable.
There's much more that could be done. The sanctions are a great reflection of this. Congress passes them. They're almost never on the same page about anything. You guys slow walk them. Nikki Haley goes out and says, we're going to do more because you can't have Russia helping a madman kill his own people with chemical weapons. The president says, no, we'll wait for them to do something really bad. What else could be worse?
I would like to think that this administration has taken very serious actions, and I think you accepted that. What would be great now is that the administration actually could work with Congress, and Congress would allow us to have a Secretary of State confirmed so we could actually begin to continue to engage.
Do you think that you can get Mike Pompeo through the committee, or do you think you're going to have to wait for McConnell to engineer a vote on the floor, and then do you think you have the votes?
You know, Chris, this has been an incredibly disheartening couple weeks because in a lot of our private meetings with Democrats, what they say is, we know you graduated top of your class at West Point. We know you graduated magna cum laude from Harvard Law School. You served honorably in the Army. You've done a phenomenal job at the CIA, but we just can't vote for you.
But there's a distinction, right?
No, the reality is that Democrats have become beholden to the Bernie Sandinistas and as well to the MoveOn.org movement, and they're not showing courage in doing what they know is right.
But you have a lot of moderate voices, Mark. You know, look, I hear you about each party has a fringe, right, that's getting more and more robust. I don't know that it's fair to lump Bernie in there on this particular issue, but
it absolutely is. You go look at the emails that they've been sending. You look at the pressure, and the Democrats
I get them all,
themselves will
Mark.
tell
I'm
you.
on your mailing list. I'm a friend of Trump.
Excellent.
I'm a friend of the DNC. You guys all send me your emails, and you're all very angry at one another. It's really serving us well. What I'm asking you is this. When it comes to Pompeo as CIA director, you're right. He did very well because he checked so many of the boxes. As Secretary of State, you know that people are saying it's a different set of job requirements, his being very hawkish, the things that he's said about people of a very major religion in this world, that he states an aggression that they're not sure suits this country as a diplomatic premise. It's a different job.
Chris, each and every one of those alleged comments were there before Democrats voted to confirm the CIA director, and anyone at the CIA will tell you that he has done nothing but support them of all religions and has helped support all the agents within the CIA. He's done a great job. The reason for the opposition now has nothing to do with that. The reason for the opposition is that the MoveOn.org and the Bernie Sandinistas have littered Democrat offices. They'll tell us that in private, but then in public they'll go out and say something else. It is why people have gotten so frustrated and angry with this town. They know that he is a uniquely qualified person to serve as Secretary of State. He should certainly get overwhelming support in the committee today and on the floor later this week.
But I'm just saying that's the basis of the resistance. It's different. Finishing first at West Point is an amazing achievement. It's not a usual one for a Secretary of State. You're right. That speaks to a military background. Usually you're trying to keep those things separate. But let's see how it goes. Let's see if he gets through the committee. And if not, what happens on the floor. We will watch it. Two quick things for you. All right. The first one is we were talking here on the show and I was saying if the president believes that this is a witch hunt, what Bob Mueller is doing, that they're out to get him. And now they're targeting his man, Michael Cohen, who's a good man, who's done nothing wrong. Why doesn't he pardon them right now?
Oh, Chris, I would imagine that if he did that, there'd be quite an outcry from your networks as well.
He has the power. What do you care what we say? Since when do you care what we say?
There's no need for that at this point, Chris. I think that the president, of course, all of us are frustrated. We're very frustrated with the scope of the investigation and the way that it's dragged on. We feel like we've complied in every single possible way for an investigation.
Well, he hasn't even sat for an interview with Mueller. That's the most obvious way to
the House has completed its investigation. We're anxious for the Senate to complete its. The American people are more interested in knowing the unemployment rate is the lowest point in 17 years. It's the lowest point ever for Hispanic Americans.
It's been a great continuation of Economy that he inherited. No question about it.
Pocketbook
politics matter.
You can't say that. For 8 years, the
GDP
the Obama years, the GDP averaged 1.8%, the lowest since the Great Depression.
You're at the same range right now.
You cannot sit here and say that
you're at the same range right now.
Economy. No,
and your deficits are way bigger than theirs were.
It's averaged 3%.
Now, you're taking it one little tight space. Overall, your growth models are the same. They're a continuation of what they were.
They're not,
and your deficit, you just ballooned your deficit in a way that we did not see under Obama. Even if you look at the numbers coming out of the Great Recession. Still, the way they dealt with the deficit is better than you guys are right now. Very surprising for the GOP.
You're doing a great job of filibustering more so than a lot of our senators are. But here's the reality. Last quarter,
these are facts, my friend.
The revenues. No, here's a fact for you. Last quarter revenues to our Treasury were higher than they've ever been. The reason that the deficits are going is not because revenues have decreased. The reason that the deficit is growing is because spending is increasing.
Yeah, and you guys signed on to it.
Well, you just said it was because
and your
of the tax
cut
package. Okay, well, the reality is revenues are growing at a higher rate than ever before, and they have the highest number.
But you have bigger deficits to offset them. That's all I'm saying, and we'll see how it plays out.
What you said is because of the tax cut, and the reality is
the tax cut added to the deficit, no question about it, in a way that nobody in your party would have ever anticipated an administration ago, that they'd be signing on to a tax cut like that had that kind of implication on the deficit. But that's where we are.
It's fascinating to think that you believe we inherited a great economy from the Obama administration.
I'm just telling you what the numbers are. The unemployment rate was very low. Where we were going,
1.8% GDP growth over the entire 8 years, the worst since the Great Depression. Unemployment, more people came on food stamps than the history of our country. 15 million people added onto food stamps during the last year of the Obama administration. What this administration is actually doing is lowering that.
All right.
Lowest unemployment claims in 44 years.
I'll talk to you about each of those things individually on a different day. You're always welcome here, because we both know one of the reasons people are getting off food stamps isn't because they're getting great jobs. They're now being pushed off the rolls with new requirements. But we'll talk about that on another day. No, Mark, we'll talk about another day. I want to ask you one other thing. Is it true that the planning for this first state dinner, that Melania Trump deserves a lot of credit for this? She's doing it all herself. She didn't even hire outside consultants for this. Is that true?
Absolutely. She's an incredibly gracious, beautiful first lady who's done a phenomenal job, represents us well, and she's planned the state dinner. That's
interesting. Because, even with Michelle Obama, when they did their first one with Renzi, the Italian one, I was invited to that one, by the way, they used an outside consult on that. So that's impressive. I just wanted to get that detail nailed down. Mark Short, you are always welcome to come on this show and make the case to the American people. I appreciate you doing it more than you know.
Thank you, sir.